Yeah, kid, park my car, get my bags, and put on some weight, will you? Hey, Wang, what's with the pictures? It's a parking lot. Come on, will you?
From Chevy Chase playing the effortlessly cool Ty Webb to Rodney Dangerfield bringing pure chaos as Al Czervik, Ted Knight as the constantly furious Judge Smails, and Bill Murray as the eccentric, one-track-minded groundskeeper, Carl Spackler. Caddyshack became one of the most loved and endlessly rewatched comedies of its time. But behind the sunshine and nonstop laughs was a much wilder story. Something you never knew existed in the comedy. Join us in this video as we reveal 20 shocking facts you totally missed on Caddyshack. Number 20. The location of the shoot was chosen out of circumstance. Director Harold Ramis had a very specific vision for Bushwood Country Club. He wanted it to feel like a classic Midwestern private club, with clean fairways, towering oak trees, and absolutely no palm trees in sight. The problem? They were filming in Florida. After searching, they landed on the Rolling Hills Golf Club, one of the few courses in the state that could convincingly match that look. Ramis chose the location carefully. It had no palm trees, which made the Midwestern illusion possible as long as the cameras stayed pointed in the right direction. Then, everything changed. In early September 1979, Hurricane David swept in just as production was getting underway and shut the entire shoot down. With nowhere else to go, the cast and crew checked into a hotel near the course to wait it out. And instead of slowing things down, they leaned into the chaos. By multiple accounts, the downtime turned into one long, unforgettable party, which, given everything else about this production, wasn't surprising at all. When the storm finally passed and filming resumed, the already hectic schedule had taken a hit. What other shocking details are there to catch up on? Keep watching to find out. Number 19. The set turned into a party. Filming took place in the fall of 1979 at the Rolling Hills Golf Club. But this wasn't your typical film production. By most accounts, the set felt more like an ongoing party than a structured shoot. Cast and crew later described it as chaotic, loose, and constantly unpredictable, far from anything you'd expect on a professional movie set. Substances were openly present. Sleep wasn't exactly a priority. And the script? Whatever version existed that week often took a back seat to everything else happening around it. At the center of it all was writer and producer Douglas Kenney. Kenney was undeniably brilliant, one of the key creative minds behind National Lampoon and the hit film Animal House. But during Caddyshack, the chaos wasn't just something happening around him, he was deeply caught up in it. The same freewheeling, anything-goes atmosphere that gave the comedians room to improvise and shine on screen was also fueling something darker behind the scenes. Kenney passed away in 1980, just months after the film's release. The wild energy that helped shape Caddyshack came at a cost, one that never made it onto the screen. Did anyone else pay for being extravagant on set? What other shocking things happened in Caddyshack that most people missed? Let's see. Number 18. The show was inspired by real-life occurrences. Writer Brian Doyle Murray drew heavily from his teenage years working as a caddy at the Indian Hill Golf Club in Illinois. A lot of what you see in the film isn't just made up. It's inspired by people and moments he actually experienced. The struggling elderly golfers, the rich country club regulars, and even the personalities of the caddies all trace back to those early days. He wasn't the only one with that background either. His brothers, Bill Murray and John Murray, along with director Harold Ramis, had all spent time working on golf courses. That shared experience gave them a clear and often hilarious view into the strange, over-the-top world of country clubs. Even the famous pool scene has real-life roots. The moment where a candy bar causes mass panic was inspired by something Brian Doyle Murray witnessed back in high school. Someone had tossed a candy bar into a pool as a prank, and the chaos that followed stuck with him. For the film, the production team tweaked the branding of the Baby Ruth candy bar slightly, just to stay clear of any legal trouble. Did anyone ever notice these little details? Are there more? Keep watching to find out. Number 17. The movie was almost canceled for lack of a star. Hollywood liked Caddyshack, just not enough to fully commit. Orion Pictures saw potential in the concept, a chaotic comedy set in a country club where misfits clash with old money elites. But they had one major condition. They needed a star. Not just any actor, but a recognizable name. Someone who could draw an audience and sell tickets before a single scene was even filmed. Without a major name attached, the project wasn't going anywhere. It just sat on the shelf. That changed when Chevy Chase came on board. Chase had recently proven his box office appeal with the 1978 film Foul Play. And once his name was attached, Caddyshack suddenly looked like a much safer bet. What had once been a risky idea became something the studio could confidently move forward with. With Chase locked in, attention turned to casting Czervik, the loud, disruptive millionaire who bulldozes through every Bushwood tradition like it doesn't matter. At one point, Don Rickles was considered for the role. His sharp, rapid-fire insult style would have fit the character perfectly. But then director Harold Ramis saw something else. After catching Rodney Dangerfield on The Tonight Show, he made his decision almost instantly. That high-energy, self-deprecating style, the guy who can't get no respect, felt like it belonged right there on the golf course. Ramis finally offered him the role. What else might make you stop and wonder how this movie ever became successful? Let's see. Number 16. One character was never meant to be. Carl Spackler, the eccentric groundskeeper obsessed with taking down a gopher, was never supposed to be a central figure in the film. When Bill Murray was first brought onto Caddyshack, the role was small, nearly silent even, more background texture than anything else. The plan was simple. Murray would shoot his scenes in about 6 days, then head back to Saturday Night Live, where he was still performing live every week. But that plan didn't last long. As soon as filming began, Murray brought something completely unexpected to the role. An offbeat, philosophical, totally unpredictable energy that wasn't in the script and couldn't be controlled. Suddenly, Carl Spackler wasn't just a side character anymore. He was stealing the movie. Every scene Bill Murray touched came back bigger, stranger, and far more unpredictable than what was originally on the page. The production kept calling him back from New York. They wanted more scenes, more moments, more Carl. What was supposed to be a quick, one-week role slowly expanded into something much larger. Carl Spackler, the character meant to quietly exist in the background, became one of the most unforgettable parts of the entire film. What else was unplanned, but made it into the movie anyway? Keep watching to find out. Number 15. The movie took an entirely different path. Before Caddyshack became a comedy classic, it was originally meant to be something much more grounded, a coming-of-age story centered on teenagers. Brian Doyle Murray, Harold Ramis, and Douglas Kenney originally built the script around the caddies. At the center of it all were Danny Noonan, played by Michael O'Keefe, and Tony D'Annunzio, played by Scott Colomby. The story followed two young guys trying to navigate summer jobs, social pressure, and the unspoken rules of an elite country club. It wasn't just fiction. It came straight from real life. The Murray brothers had worked as caddies themselves at the Indian Hill Club. Their older brother Ed even won a Chick Evans Caddy Scholarship, the same opportunity Danny spends the film chasing. At this stage, the adult characters, Ty Webb, Czervik, and Carl Spackler, were never meant to take over the movie. They were just colorful side figures, adding humor around the edges of a story that truly belonged to the teenagers. Then production started, and everything changed. The romantic storyline between Danny and Maggie was trimmed down to almost nothing. The teenage caddies, who were supposed to carry the entire film, slowly faded into the background of their own story. What the writers had carefully planned was quietly overtaken by something they never expected. Did the director even see some of these things coming? What else happened in the movie that remains shocking? Let's see. Number 14. The characters were more spontaneous than ever. One of the most iconic moments in Caddyshack is the Dalai Lama monologue. Carl casually tells a story about caddying for the Dalai Lama on a golf course in Tibet, getting stiffed on a tip, but somehow walking away with total consciousness as his reward. And he delivers it with complete sincerity, like a man who truly believes he came out ahead. But here's the twist. It almost didn't belong to him. The idea for the scene existed early on, and another actor was originally given a shot at it. On paper, the premise is funny, serving one of the most respected spiritual figures in the world and ending up with nothing but a vague cosmic payoff. But in execution, it fell flat. Played straight, it came off more sincere than absurd, missing the strange confidence that made the moment work. Director Harold Ramis saw the problem and handed it over to Murray. What happened next wasn't scripted. Murray kept the basic idea, but everything else? Completely improvised. He rebuilt the monologue in Carl Spackler's voice, a man who is absolutely convinced he understood the deal, believes he got the better end of it, and has never once doubted that conclusion. And that's exactly what makes it unforgettable. Harold Ramis was very direct about how Bill Murray worked on set. Most of what ended up in the film wasn't tightly scripted dialogue. It was Murray improvising in real time. Just instinct, timing, and pure imagination, all happening in front of the camera. And how well did that turn out? What else feels too real to ever be a hitch on the show? Keep watching to find out. Number 13. There was only one professional on the set. By the time Ted Knight arrived on the set of Caddyshack, he was already an established television veteran. He had built his career on shows like The Mary Tyler Moore Show, where everything was structured, tight scripts, precise timing, and a level of professionalism that carried through every scene. Nothing about that experience prepared him for what he was walking into. Knight came from a world where actors learned their lines, hit their marks, and stayed within the boundaries of the script. But on Caddyshack, almost everyone else was working differently. Rodney Dangerfield delivered punchlines like he was still on stage, fast, relentless, barely pausing between jokes. Bill Murray turned every scene into something unpredictable, constantly reshaping what wasn't written. And Chevy Chase made improvisation feel so natural that it almost seemed like the intended script. In the middle of all that controlled chaos, Knight stood out as the one actor working in a completely different rhythm. Cindy Morgan, who played Lacey Underall, later recalled the contrast on set in vivid detail. She remembered Ted Knight standing calmly with his script in hand, carefully prepared and fully in control of his lines, while Rodney Dangerfield would run through scenes in every direction, throwing out jokes and improvisations on the fly. Knight's frustration with the chaotic process was obvious to everyone around him, but he never broke character. He stayed fully committed to Judge Smails' every single take. Pompous, easily offended, and always just one insult away from emotional collapse. What else did everyone totally miss in the movie? Let's see. Number 12. An afterthought became the most expensive part of the movie. The gopher in Caddyshack was never meant to be a major part of the film. In the original script, it only appeared briefly, a small pest problem for Carl Spackler to deal with. Nothing important, just background detail. But after filming wrapped, the producers reviewed the footage and realized something was missing. The movie had funny moments, but it didn't have a strong central thread to hold everything together. So they looked at what they already had. That tiny gopher scene became the answer. They decided to turn it into a recurring element, a kind of running gag, Carl's personal nemesis, and a connective thread that would run through the entire film. To make it work, they brought in a team of effects artists with ties to John Dykstra, the Oscar-winning pioneer behind the visual effects of Star Wars. That same level of technical expertise used for lightsabers and space battles was now being applied to a small animatronic gopher on a Florida golf course. The puppet itself cost only about $5,000 to build, a simple foam and wire creation designed to smirk and move just enough to be believable. But once the production started adding new scenes, underground tunnel sequences, and effects to make the gopher feel like a real character, the costs kept climbing. By the end, what started as a minor prop ballooned into a $500,000 investment. At that point, it was basically Star Wars technology being used to bring a dancing gopher to life, Hollywood at its most inventive and, at the same time, most excessive. Who'd have thought that an ordinary detail could cost that much? What else seems unbelievable in the movie? Keep watching to find out. Number 11. Bill Murray and Chevy Chase were enemies in real life. On screen, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase seemed to work effortlessly together in Caddyshack. But off-screen, that's a very different story. Just 2 years before filming, the two reportedly got into a physical fight backstage at Saturday Night Live, in John Belushi's dressing room, only minutes before the show was about to go live. The tension had been building for a while. Chase had left SNL at the height of its early success to pursue a film career. Murray was brought in to replace him. That alone created some underlying resentment on both sides. When Chase returned later as a guest host, things finally boiled over. The insults started flying. Murray reportedly called Chase a medium talent. Chase fired back with personal digs of his own. Then it escalated. Belushi had to physically separate them just so the show could go on. Fast forward 2 years, and now they're cast in the same movie. Given that history, director Harold Ramis made a cautious decision early on. In the original script, Carl Spackler and Ty Webb never shared a scene. Their characters existed in completely separate worlds. Whether that was a creative choice or simply a way to avoid conflict, no one was taking chances. But Ramis eventually reconsidered. You've got two of the funniest people alive in the same film, and they never interact? That didn't sit right, so he brought them together over lunch, pitched the idea of a shared scene, and let them loosely map it out themselves. That same afternoon, they filmed it. The result? The now iconic shack scene. What other fact was totally missed? Let's see. Number 10. There were some troubling behind-the-scenes moments. Not all behind-the-scenes stories were fun, though. During the filming of a topless pool scene, Cindy Morgan, who played Lacey Underall, found herself in an uncomfortable situation. She had agreed to the scene, but not to anything beyond that. Producer John Peters allegedly tried to bring in a Playboy photographer for an unplanned nude shoot. Morgan pushed back, and the situation escalated, with Peters reportedly threatening her career. Thankfully, Michael O'Keefe and director Harold Ramis supported her, and Peters eventually backed off, though the experience left a lasting impression. In a full-circle moment, decades later in 2020, Michael O'Keefe returned to his caddy roots, this time for real. He served as a caddy for pro golfer Danny Balin during the U.S. Open, blending fiction and reality in a way that fans of the film could definitely appreciate. At the 2020 U.S. Open in New York, Michael O'Keefe proved it wasn't just acting. He could actually play. In fact, he was one of the only cast members from Caddyshack who genuinely knew how to swing a golf club. Director Harold Ramis once joked that it bothered him that no one else in the movie could really play. Despite the chaos behind the scenes, the original film was a huge success, pulling in over $60 million at the box office. But the sequel, Caddyshack 2, released in 1988, was a completely different story. Only Chevy Chase returned from the original cast, and without the same mix of talent and improvisational energy, the magic just wasn't there. Even Ramis, who had written the first draft, distanced himself from the final version, openly calling it terrible. The film flopped and has since earned a reputation as one of the worst comedy sequels ever made. Are there more shocking details that everyone missed? Keep watching to find out. Number 9. The pool prank wasn't just fiction. That famous pool scene, where everyone suddenly panics and scrambles out of the water, was inspired by something that actually happened. Co-writer Brian Doyle Murray reportedly pulled a similar prank when he was younger. Someone dropped a mysterious object into a pool, and within seconds, total chaos broke out as everyone rushed to get out of the water. The kind of prank that only gets funnier in hindsight, as long as nobody got hurt. In the film, that object becomes a Baby Ruth candy bar, drifting slowly across the pool like the most dramatic piece of chocolate ever put on screen. But there was a catch. On set, they discovered a problem almost immediately. A real Baby Ruth doesn't float. It sinks straight to the bottom like a chocolate brick, which doesn't exactly create the suspenseful, slow-motion effect the scene needed. The solution was simple: a foam prop. They built a lightweight replica of a Baby Ruth, carefully shaped and painted to look real, but buoyant enough to float perfectly across the pool just the way the shot required. How far did the team get creative? What else did they improvise so accurately on set? Let's see. Number 8. The movie had a lot of inconsistencies no one noticed. The candy bar detail even had a funny inconsistency. In one shot, it's labeled Baby Rut, missing the H, and in another, it shows up as Baby Runt. Small change, but noticeable. And here's the kicker. Years later, a couple of kids on YouTube tested the idea and found that the chocolate bar in question wouldn't actually float, so that iconic scene? Not exactly scientifically accurate. The first cut of the movie was massive, around 4.5 hours long. A lot of that runtime came from extended improv, especially from Murray. His Cinderella story monologue alone originally stretched to about 30 minutes. In the end, more than 2 hours were cut, shifting the focus away from the original Caddy storyline and toward the standout comedic performances. Years later, in 2001, Bill Murray and his brothers brought the film full circle by opening Murray Brothers Caddyshack. The restaurant leans fully into the movie's legacy, with playful menu items like Noonan's Nachos and Lumma's Hummus, giving fans a fun, nostalgic way to experience the film beyond the screen. The story didn't end there. What else happened? that remains shocking. Let's see. Number 7. What happened in Florida did not stay in Florida. In 2011, the film's production manager, Rusty Lemerand, filed a $6 million lawsuit against the makers of the documentary Caddyshack, The Inside Story. He claimed the film falsely portrayed him as a spy on set, reporting back to the studio. According to him, that accusation could have been cleared up by deleted interview footage, where he simply said, "What happens in Florida stays in Florida." The lawsuit was eventually settled, and the film's legacy kept growing. Harold Ramis once explained that Caddyshack is structured a lot like a Marx Brothers movie. Each main character reflects a different comedic style from the group. Bill Murray's Carl Spackler channels Harpo Marx with his mostly physical, offbeat humor. Chevy Chase's Ty Webb has the smooth, quick-talking charm of Chico Marx. And Rodney Dangerfield brings the loud, fast-paced, insult-heavy energy very much in line with Groucho Marx. Dangerfield even delivered the film's final line, "Hey everybody, we're all gonna get laid," completely on impulse. Ramis later admitted he almost couldn't believe he kept it in, since it doesn't really tie into the story. Still, it stuck. Were critics even able to spot these inconsistencies? Keep watching to find out. Number 6. Even critics missed this part. When Caddyshack first hit theaters, the critical response was far from kind. Reviewers called it unfocused and chaotic. One even described it as pleasantly formless, which sounds polite, but isn't exactly praise. The New York Times noted that the film barely had a story at all. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars, describing it more like a collection of disconnected sketches than a cohesive film. And in fairness, given what the production went through, the hurricane delays, constant rewrites, the last-minute addition of the gopher storyline, and heavy improvisation, that criticism wasn't entirely wrong. The movie really was assembled from fragments, but audiences weren't looking for structure. They came for moments. They came for Bill Murray, delivering total consciousness with absolute sincerity, as he had personally solved the universe. They came for Rodney Dangerfield, turning every scene into a rapid-fire sequence of punchlines without missing a beat. And they came for Chevy Chase, making effortless cool look like the easiest thing in the world, even when he was barely doing anything at all. In the end, home video and cable television did what the initial release couldn't. They turned Caddyshack into something permanent. They gave the film time. Over the years, Caddyshack became the kind of movie you don't just watch once. You return to it again and again. What else did no one anticipate in the movie? What other thing did everyone miss? Let's see. Number 5. These roles would have been skipped. Before Rodney Dangerfield delivered his unforgettable performance as Al Czervik, the producers actually had someone else in mind. Don Rickles. Known for his razor-sharp insults, Rickles seemed like a perfect fit. But once Dangerfield started gaining major attention from his appearances on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, the producers changed course. They felt his loud, brash energy matched the character even better. And they were right. The role of Danny Noonan, the young caddy caught between his working-class life and the elite country club scene, also had a different actor in the running. Mickey Rourke was considered at first, but the studio passed on him, saying he just wasn't funny enough for the part. That opened the door for Michael O'Keefe to step in. Imagine if Rodney were not on the show. What other shocking facts did we miss? Keep watching to find out. Number 4. The movie turned into a restaurant. Some films get sequels, others get merchandise. Caddyshack got something else entirely, a full restaurant. In 2001, Bill Murray and his 5 brothers, Andy, Brian, Joel, Ed, and John, opened Murray Brothers Caddyshack restaurant in St. Augustine, Florida, at the World Golf Village, home of the World Golf Hall of Fame. The idea was developed by chef Andy Murray, alongside his longtime friend and business partner M. Haskell, who helped shape the original concept and bring the Murray family into the project. All 6 brothers eventually became partners in the venture. It was a full-circle moment for a family whose connection to golf and caddying went all the way back to their teenage years at Indian Hill Club. Do you think they'd have been more? What other shocking things happened in the movie? Keep watching to find out. Number 3. They almost caused an airport explosion. The film's final golf course explosion, meant as a comedic payoff to the gopher storyline, ended up causing real confusion miles away. Rolling Hills Golf Club sat directly beneath the flight path of Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport. So when the special effects team detonated the explosive finale on the 18th hole, they weren't on a closed soundstage or a remote desert set. They were literally sending a fireball into the open Florida sky, directly under active air traffic. A pilot flying overhead saw the explosion and the thick plume of smoke rising from below and immediately radioed in, reporting what looked like a possible crash. Air traffic control escalated the alert. Local authorities were contacted. For a brief but very real moment, multiple agencies believed a disaster might have occurred, all because of a comedy movie wrapping up its final scene. Could there be something more shocking than this? Let's see. Number 2. This was more than a movie. Here's the most remarkable truth about Caddyshack. The film audiences have quoted for over 40 years barely had a finished script. 3 writers spent months developing a 200-page screenplay, and in all that material, the character Carl Spackler didn't even exist. Then production began, and everything changed. 3 comedians stepped onto a Florida golf course and effectively rewrote the movie in real time. And most of what they created on the spot ended up staying in the final cut. Take Rodney Dangerfield, for example. His very first scene, the entrance in the pro shop, was supposed to be simple. Director Harold Ramis called action. Dangerfield didn't move. They tried again. Still nothing. Ramis walked over, thinking there was confusion about the cue. But what followed was something entirely different. Rodney Dangerfield listened for a moment, then asked if he should just do his bit. Director Harold Ramis told him yes. Dangerfield stepped into the scene and delivered it perfectly, including a line about a hat that deserved a free bowl of soup, which he made up on the spot. From that moment on, Ramis stopped calling action for Dangerfield takes. He simply let him go. What other shocking facts did everyone miss in Caddyshack? Keep watching to find out.
Number 1. There was an unexpected scene.
There's the gopher scene. When it came time to blow up the gopher holes, the owners of Rolling Hills Golf Club weren't exactly on board. They worried about damage to the course, but producer John Peters had a clever workaround, and the scene made it into the film anyway. Producer John Peters came up with a clever workaround. He treated the golf club owners to a fancy dinner and a scenic boat ride, just enough of a distraction for the crew to secretly film the explosion scene. The course stayed intact, and the moment went on to become one of the film's most memorable. What do you think about these shocking facts everyone missed on Caddyshack? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us to look through the not-so-known facts of Caddyshack. We hope you found this video both interesting and thrilling. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more interesting facts. See you there.